Good morning, members, and welcome to the meeting of Annandale and Eskdale Area Committee. This meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be made available on our council's website for public listening. Just in terms of good housekeeping, good practice, can we mute microphones and switch off video when you're not addressing the meeting? And if you want to contribute to any item, just write "speak" in the Teams chat function, and you'll be invited to speak. If your question or issue has been raised already by a previous speaker, please withdraw your request so we can deal with the business as efficiently as possible. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call, and if any member has to leave the meeting for any reason, can I ask you to either write "leave" in the Teams meeting and then join again, and that will allow us to monitor member presence. So with that, if we go on to the Sederant and apologies, please.
Morning, Chair. We've currently got 8 members present. I don't have any formal apologies. Not present at the start of the meeting are Councillor Ian Crothers, Councillor Gail McGregor and Councillor Henry McClellan.
Thanks, Tracy. Do we have any declarations of interest for any of the items? Councillor Dryborough? You might be on mute.
I'm trying to get it off mute. It's taking its time. Not so much a declaration of interest, Chair, but one of the discretionary budget performance monitor talks about New Start Recycle. I volunteer there, but I don't think it gives me any need to withdraw from any of the meeting.
Thanks, Archie. We can note the interest as a matter of course. Any other declarations of interest, members? I don't see anything else in the chat function. So if we then go on to item 3, which is minute of the previous meeting, for noting, are we happy to note?
Noted.
Thank you. And then we're on to item 4, which is discretionary budget performance monitoring 2020-21, report by Community Planning and Engagement Manager. So we've got Stuart Hamilton's suddenly appeared on the screen here. So Stuart, is there anything you'd like to add to the report to update members?
Thanks, Chair. Nothing to add to the report, but happy to take questions.
Okay, members, we've got the report in front of us. Is there anything that we'd like to raise with the officer who's present? Archie again.
Yeah, so nothing to question or anything, Chair, but obviously last year was a year where a lot of this budget would have been used if we were in normal circumstances. And I see in 2.3 we were asked to carry forward the remaining balance of 26,025 from the 2021 to the 2022 budget as outlined in paragraph 3.9. I think that's right, Chair. I think obviously if we can support local organisations and individuals, especially in the sport side of things, we should do that.
Yep, all fair points. Archie, I mean, obviously the recommendations are in front of us. I see Sean's wanting to come in as well. Sean?
Yeah, really just to concur with what Archie said, and really just to say well done to the team. And it was a difficult year, but at least we did manage to get some of the funding, particularly Christmas lights, which I think a lot of communities appreciated that. And I think it's a good idea that we carry forward the remaining balance, because no doubt we will need that. We'll need as many funds as we can to kind of support organisations, etc., in the new financial year. So happy to go with the recommendation.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, obviously all the galas, riding the marches, etc., were totally knocked out in the park last year, and it's looking a bit iffy for a few this year in terms of organising things in advance. But yeah, I think the community is showing great creativity, and I think it's quite right that we do look at carrying forward that balance, because as long as we go forward with the best foot and a positive attitude, I think we can support communities in whatever way they come up with to re-emerge from this pandemic restrictions. So if there's no other speakers, I don't see any in the chat, and I don't want to dwell on this because the information is contained in the report. Are we happy to, at the recommendations, note the performance monitoring information? note that the 700 citizens have benefited from the delivery of the projects, and agree to carry forward the remaining budget of £26,025 into this year.
Agreed.
Happy with that.
Okay, thank you. That brings us on to item 5, which is lease of Pavilion Beech Grove tennis courts. We have Nick Lane, I think, on the team here. And this
morning, councillors.
Good morning, Nick. Thanks for coming today. Obviously, you're here to help with any questions. It does say in the report about representations could be received in terms of the notification about this between January 12th and 9th of March, and I'm just sort of wondering if there's been any update on the report.
We have had no representation at all, received no comments whatsoever.
Okay, thank you. So we've effectively fulfilled our duty, if you like, in terms of the proper advertising that's contained. I'll open it up to members for any comments or questions just now. Gail, oh sorry, I thought you were in the chat there, Gail. Any comments from members on this item?
I've got something, David, Stephen. It was just a quick, it was just a quick question, just with regards to if we agree the lease. Obviously, the council still owns the land. I'm just wondering what the status would be of the new pavilion. Would that be owned by the group? I just want clarification on that.
Usually, ownership of property lies with the land. We are granting them a ground lease, and at the expiry of any ground lease that we grant, if we were not minded to renew that lease, then the property would revert back to the council's ownership, and in fact, it would revert to the common goods ownership.
Yeah, does that help, Sean, with respect to that?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's just yeah, that's fine.
And I see Archie's want to come in as well. Archie, is it in the same point?
Yeah, so it's on the same point, Chair. I mean, I think it's very similar to the Scout Hut in Gretna, where the land is owned by the council, but the Scout Hall is actually owned by the Scouts Association, and it would probably be something similar along them lines, I would imagine.
I would concur with that.
Okay, thank you. And just in terms of, obviously, I know the group has been waiting for quite a while for this to sort of be resolved, and there's a lot of complicated factors behind that. But in terms of the common good status, because this is a long-term lease, does that negate the need for it to go to the sheriff? Because I think that was a step potentially in the process for this to get approved, because we're not changing title. Or I don't know if you can maybe elaborate on that a little bit.
Yes. It needs to go to the sheriff because what we're proposing to do with this lease is called alienation, which, if followed to the exact meaning of it, we're actually preventing some members of the community accessing that piece of land that we're going to rent to them. Now, they're a sports club and they want as many members as possible, so it all seems a bit sort of academic, if you like, but it is a requirement of the legislation that we get consent from the sheriff to alienate that piece of land.
Okay, that's helpful. And just with that, presumably the consultation process we've gone through and clearly the no feedback helps us put the case to the sheriff to go through the proper process so they can make a decision. And just on that, given the length of time this seems to have taken, is that process able to be expedited? I mean, is there anything we can do to make it go quicker, or is it really down to the sheriff now?
It's in process. We're preparing our application to sheriff in advance of the result of this meeting, if you like, so that we can move forward as quickly as possible.
Okay, thanks, Nick. I mean, I don't see any other speakers, but just in terms of moving to that decision as quickly as possible, then if we go to the recommendations, we can note that there haven't been any representations lodged following the public consultation as detailed. We've just heard Nick updates on that. And so at 2, can we agree to consent to lease an area of land for the new pavilion at Beech Grove tennis courts for a period of 25 years and at a rent of £1 per annum?
Agreed.
Okay, that's agreed, thank you. Thanks, Nick, for that. And hopefully the group will be pleased to hear about that outcome as well.
I'll let them know in the 48 hours when that's over.
Great. Appreciate that. Thank you, Nick.
Okay, thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. On to item 6 then. It's road network management, street naming, and this is development at Phase 3 Windermere Park Annan. We have Kevin Morrison here, I think, on Teams to assist members with any questions in this report.
Thank you, Chair.
Morning, Kevin.
Morning.
I can see Ian Carruthers has raised a hand on this one, so I'll just go straight to questions because normally these are fairly sort of routine. So, Ian.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you, Kevin, for the actual report. Chair, obviously I shared some information in regards to constituent and concerns raised this morning. The question I left there, which I don't mind, general this decision ultimately resolve the issues that are in that particular area. Kevin, I think you issues are around that, if that's okay.
Yes, I couldn't quite make that out, sorry.
We're losing you a little bit there, Ian.
Sorry, I'm a crap signal. Poor signal, sorry, Stephen. So I wonder if you could elaborate in regards to, you both got the information that I shared with you this morning when I had a good signal. So it just has that question, my question that I put within that email, will this resolve that, please?
Hello, Councillor Carruthers. It won't necessarily immediately resolve the issue. I think the issue relies on the existing developers and the housing association. Part 2A or Phase 2A of the development is where the Windermere Avenue section is, and that we have to raise with the housing developer and the construction company Anderson Joinery to progress this and get this dealt with. They need to come down to our asset management team and make the site live, and then need to put the street name plates on. So they have been told numerous times, and I will make sure I'll chase that up a bit harder this time and get that dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Chair. I feel assured by that, and I'll speak to you offline if that's okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Ian, thanks for raising that, and obviously, ultimately, we just want to make it as easy as possible for the residents there to get what's meant to be. So, yeah. So if there's an action there, then that's obviously something that can be followed up in due course. So thanks for that, Kevin. In terms of any other questions, are we happy to agree to Windermere Park as a preferred name?
Agreed.
Okay. Okay, thank you, members. That brings us on to item 7, which is again on street naming in Annan, and this time the development at Longmeadow House. Kevin's still with us to assist with any questions. Is there anything or any points that members want to raise on this one?
Happy to agree, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Sean. I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so if members are happy to agree, that's what we'll do. So thank you. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Chair.
That brings us on to item 8, which is any other business deemed urgent by the chairman due to the need for a decision. The only thing I would say here is following the E&R committee yesterday, and I think a number of the members of this area committee raised points about consultation, especially around the conservation areas being either removed or whatever. So part of our delegation is to follow that local empowerment engagement at an area committee level. So I know there's a few members on this committee who were at that committee yesterday. I think it would be good for us to maybe take an act or a comment or an action back if that's suitable, and I can check with Stuart or Tracy who are here. If we can just feed something back just to say, can we ensure that this is captured and reviewed at the Review of Standing Order subcommittee, particularly around consultation on issues where small villages and towns will certainly be impacted by this or want to have a say. I think Ian's hand was up first and then Sean. So Ian, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully you can hear me. No, thanks so much for raising this point as well. It is much appreciated. I thought it was a very positive conversation and debate we had yesterday, economy and resources. I would support what you're saying, and I think it's, for me, it's as much about the review scheme of delegation as, no, sorry, the review standing order, sorry. committee and it's there at area committees, and how can they best look at that to make sure that the delegates to this committee and the other three across the region are at the right level where they actually can involve and interact with the local communities. And that, you say, it's taken on it. I think it needs to be a shift. We go back to 2007 to 12, that first term. There's radical changes for then. Well, I thought it was the right thing to do, I think. And I think there needs to be a shift in the way back. There needs to be a high level of delegation to area committees. I know some members would like to see the back in area committees, but that's certainly not my view. I think they're a really important role in our area. It's how we best communicate to local people. And I think actually yesterday was a fine example where we will be able to communicate better in regards to Annan. And the car camp, as we're talking about yesterday, so the whole heritage, the conservation area, and so I'll leave my point at that there. I'd certainly support you in regards to yourself, maybe writing to the chair or the committee chair if I'll leave that to you, but you've certainly got my support there. Thanks for raising it.
Okay, thanks, Ian. I mean, I'm not going to make the case for changing area committees back to 2007. However, what I will do is certainly try and capture especially what's in our delegation already, which is to input into major and local consultations having regard to the council's community participation and engagement strategy, etc. So I think but certainly that seemed to be what came out of yesterday from an area committee perspective. Sean, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I tend to agree what you're saying, Stephen. We have delegations to the area committee. I just think it was, I think it's an opportune time. Certainly with this case with the car cap for Annan Conservation Area, I think it's an opportune time to raise it with the subgroup, just for them to look at that to see if maybe this could be an item of business that would go to area committees for their views on any car caps in this region or any other region. So support the statement that we'll make from this area committee with regards to that, and because as you see, I mean, there's nearly 20 minutes and we're nearly done with the area committee for this month. So items like this, relevant items like this should come, I think.
No, absolutely, and I didn't set a 20-minute challenge or anything for today, but I think we can be efficient on virtual meetings, but I think the nature of the business is often quite light, and so there's certainly space for improving how we allow consultation in our local areas. So, Richard, I see your hand up as well.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I think that the conservation areas within our towns and villages is an important thing to discuss at local level, and there will be an opportunity at standing order subcommittee to consider how we go forward with area committees. But I think, especially with COVID and recovery, I think we should be taking a keen interest in our local towns and villages and see how we can debate that and put a case forward for improving our areas as we go forward.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Yeah, absolutely. Especially, I think while we've got this opportunity, digitally or otherwise, to have that communication with our community groups, etc. I mean, it makes perfect sense, and it's a low cost in terms of organising physical meetings. It's it's less onerous in that respect, takes less time, etc. I'm just wondering, Stuart. I mean, there's nothing particularly sensitive about this, but is there a way that should I write as chair, or me and the vice chair both write, or is there a sort of simple and effective way to capture the fact that we'd like this element of our delegation to extend to include the likes of conservation areas and local communities and villages where that's maybe an effect, and just generally strengthen the consultation role, if you like, the area committees can play?
Yeah, and I might bring Tracy in, who's here to provide some governance advice. But my understanding is that you as chair can note a procedure in the minutes of this meeting for this action that you've discussed, and you as chair can write to the chair of the Review of Standing Order subcommittee to detail the request and the input from this area committee today, and we can support you to do that.
I apologise for mislabelling you there, but that's very helpful. Tracy, is there anything? Can you confirm that, or anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. No, just to echo what Stuart said. I've pasted in the chat there that you can we can note a procedure in the minute of this meeting today as an action for you to write to the Review of Standing Orders Chair to consider reviewing the remit of the area committees.
That's perfect, and I like what you've done with the ROSO there. That's much easier to say in terms of the acronym. So if members can see that in the chat, we can, if we're happy to do that, we can note that procedure can go in the minute of this meeting, and I'll write to the chair of ROSO so that we can review the remit of the area committee, and I'll obviously embellish a little bit more in terms of the CACAMP consultations, etc. Are members happy for me to do that?
Agreed.
Richard, you've still got a hand up. I don't know if you want to add to that, or if it's a legacy hand, as they say.
It's my legacy to the council. Yeah.
Thanks, Richard. Okay, well, thank you. That concludes today's business. And
Chair, Gail McGregor is wanting to come in.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. I beg your pardon, Gail.
No, it's unrelated to what you were discussing. So I was holding fire until you'd finished that. We've got a seminar this afternoon. Do we have an agenda for it, or is it just our fairly normal sort of discussion, quite relaxed discussion around grants?
Yes, I think there was there not a note went out with the invitation, just kind of setting the kind of place.
I've looked on the invitation and I can't find it, but that's maybe just me being a bit thick.
There was a subsequent email with the paperwork submitted, but we will add the paperwork to the invitation so that it's easier for members to access.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay. Thanks for raising that, Gail, and thanks for that, Stuart. And so we'll see you hopefully later on today. But with that concludes today's business. So as I say, thank you all, and see you all later.